Greetings. Welcome to Ignite Your Soul Connection. My name is Janice Bond, and I'll be your host and facilitator for this insightful and generous conference. This 15-day series is a gift to our community, and it's being brought to us by Master Force International Leadership Academy, whose commitment is to see our youth educated in a way that they may experience being self-actualized at a younger age. Master Force came onto the scene in the early 90s, introducing meditation to teens and their parents as a means to bring peace and unity to their community. Thank you, Master Force Academy, for this opportunity. And tonight we get to learn more about this endeavor because the CEO and Master Instructor for Master Force is our guest for this evening. Our topic for discussion tonight will cover chakra balancing, the Marv technique, as well as learning quadrants. And I'll continue on by talking a little bit about our speaker for this evening, Rita Stewart. Rita Stewart, also known as Shemsu-t Stewart, is the CEO and founder of Master Force International Leadership Academy. She's committed to making a difference in the lives of children, families, and communities. She's provided workshops, seminars, and retreats in the Chicago area for over the past 20 years, assisting people in the areas of project completion, new business development, life planning, family goal setting, wealth consciousness, and living life fully. She currently lives in Chicago, where she hosts workshops and events at the McCaskill House. Workshops in 2007 included Living the Secret, Zen for the Sister's Soul, Creating Your Circle of Wealth, and Patiently Waiting for Nothing. Mushin's youth was spent in the streets of the inner city due to her mother being mentally ill, and she had no idea of who her father was. At a young age, she began studying how the brain works as a means to find answers that she would heal her mother. Shemsu-t was introduced to metaphysics at the age of 17 when she fractured her leg and thought she would never walk again. From that point forward, her desire to learn and apply the teachings that transforms life became her passion. It is no surprise that Shemsu-t has a natural affinity for high-risk children that live in under-resourced communities. Now, if you have any questions, please either post them to the Ignite Your Soul Force Facebook page or raise your hand. Thank you so much for joining Ignite Your Soul Connection. Shemsu-t?
Hello, Janice. It was so interesting listening to you read that. It's amazing sometimes hearing yourself discussed, isn't it?
It is.
Thank you. I really appreciate, I want to start this off by just thanking you and Tanya for the effort that you're putting into bringing this teleconference to our community and all of the different speakers who are adjusting their schedules to spend an hour and a half just sharing their different insights and topics and gifts so that our community can move to a more conscious level of existence. I was just speaking to a young woman today about all of the murders taking place in our community, and we seem to feel very hopeless inside of what's going on, and there are some things that we can do about it. So it is my intention that as we go through this conference, we will become more empowered and more aligned with our spiritual attributes so that we can deal with some of this.
And I want to remind everyone that this is an interactive call, so we look forward to getting your questions and hearing your feedback. But you know what? Let's hop right into it. I talked a little bit about you, but it's always great to hear. I love hearing you speak about yourself. And you know, I really like for you to just, for our listeners tonight, to just go into a little bit more briefly about who you are. You know, who is Shemsu-t? Who is Rita Stewart? How did that come about? And Master Force Academy. Could you share a bit about that?
Oh, very good. So I was born, of course, with the name Rita. I was born Rita Montgomery, actually, and I've been married, so that name changed. But the name Shemsu-t was given to me by a priestess, Ma'at Chaz, in the early 90s. Actually, in 1990, I was given that name. And Shemsu-t means she who follows God in divine essence. And according to Kemetic sciences, the more that you say that name, or the more that people call me by that name, the more I become that. So there's a vibration in my soul that increases when people call me Shemsu-t. So it really does matter to me when people say it correctly and when they say it. However, there are some people that refer to me as Moot, and Moot is fine because that means mother. And if anyone has ever been around me, they know that I tend to mother. So it's appropriate in most situations, not in all. And then Master Force Academy. We actually started Master Force in the early 90s when I lived in Schaumburg. At the time, my oldest son was 12, and he and his friends used to hang out at my house quite a bit. So we started having weekly meditation sessions. Every Wednesday night, a group of the young men would come, and we'd have meditation. And then the girls started coming. And, of course, when the girls start coming, that means that their mothers have to come. So here you had Wednesday night in our home. Our living room would be packed. The dining room would be packed. The stairs going up to the top level would be packed. And we would meditate. And it would be so cool because we would always focus the meditation around whatever issue one of the young men or women or even parents were dealing with. So that made it very interactive, but it also made it full of resolution. And we noticed that the meditation actually made a difference in the community. It made a difference in the energy, and we had such a peaceful existence out there during this 2 and 3 year period that we continued to do that. And so that was 20 years ago. You speed up about 15 years, and I run into some of the young men, and they let me know that this was the most productive time in their life. And they asked me, was I still doing it, and did I intend to open a school, and how could they share this information with their young children, because most of them had actually become quite accomplished. They were parents, and they went to the service, or they graduated from high school and college. They were working. And a lot of the things that they learned during that time period made a difference for how they were living now. And thus we started the Master Force Academy. And we went online, and we also have educational products that we use as well. So that's a little bit about how we got started.
Thank you. Thank you. Just wanted to make a quick note to all of the listeners that you can actually raise your hand. I know I didn't explain that earlier, but you can raise your hand actually by pressing the number 1 on your telephone pad, or again going to the Ignite Your Soul Force Facebook community page and leaving a question there. So continuing on with Shemsu-t or Moot, I call you both, of course. What would you say is the reason why, and I've heard it before, people call you or refer to you as a light worker, a spiritual teacher, a healer? What do those things mean to you? And, with the work that you've done over time, how do you believe that being perceived in that way has shaped you as a person?
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I personally do not care for titles, right? So I don't care for titles. I tell people all the time I don't like to live up to or down to whatever people want to call me. The work that I do actually does come out of my commitment to be inside of my own life purpose. So when people refer to me as a healer or a light worker or even a life coach, I do a life coach as a profession, but, it really is out of the purpose of my life. And when I look back, that is pretty much who who I was groomed to be. So when people refer to me as that, it really, I guess what it speaks to is my alignment. It says to me that I am doing exactly what I was put here for. So, but I don't put too much credence in becoming or being that. I prefer just to be Shemsu-t, and that seems to handle most of that.
Right. Yeah, that pretty much covers the entire spectrum. I just imagine, that with all of the broad spectrum of information and detail that you have in these various areas, I guess you'd say that people would consider to be on the path of enlightenment, that it would be easy for them to refer to you in those ways. But going on, where are you from, Chicago? I know that you've been here for some time, but is that where you grew up, or where
Yes.
have you been prior to that?
Yes, I actually am. I am from Chicago. I grew up on 53rd and Prairie, and I graduated from DuSable High School. So I went to Revis School in kindergarten, and then I went to Burke School at the age of 5 because my mother was put in a mental institution, and so I had to go and live with my grandmother, which had us transfer to Burke School. And then I went from Burke School to Vincennes, and they built a new school, so we went to Diet, and then I went to DuSable. So I did all of my elementary school and high school in Chicago. And then I went off to college. And when I went off to college, I actually stayed in the town. I lived in Lamars, Iowa for 10 years. So when I came back, I moved to Schaumburg, Illinois, and just lived there about 5 or 6 years, and then came back to Chicago. So, yeah, Chicago born and bred, as they say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm hearing that because I'm remembering the descriptions that I've been seeing online, especially yours. You always mention, and even in conversation, you mention Chicago being, I believe you said, the heart chakra, and you being born and raised. I guess there's no place more fitting, eh?
Well, so, I'm glad that you brought that up, Janice, because Chicago is the heart chakra of the United States. Now, it's not the heart chakra of the world, but I say it's the heart chakra of the United States. And to me, there is a spiritual vortex here, meaning that there is a lot of energy available for us to make changes. And I have used that energy. I've seen other people use this energy. And then if you look at the people that have come out of Chicago, the Oprahs, the Obamas, the Commons, the Kanyes, I mean, there are just so many amazing people here. But, those are just the people who are in the limelight. What about those who are just in the neighborhood? And that's what this conference is about. It's really about introducing people to their neighbors, to the real community, to the people who are in the trenches, to the people who are really on the front line that are doing the work. So when I talk about the heart chakra, there is a vibration here that we can use. And once we harness this energy, we will be able to heal and nurture our own community. We will be able to protect our children and teach them how to be safe. We can teach them how to be safe. We can train them to live. Right now we're training them to die, and we're putting so much energy into that sometimes the only attention they get is when we bury them. And we must stop that. We must stop that because that's what we're teaching them. We're teaching them to be eulogized, and so that's all they look forward to. So we have to change the direction of that energy and give their life more meaning by paying attention now before it's, they go to the other side. And they're teaching us. They're teaching us inside of their death. But we can literally change that with this heart chakra vibration by raising up our energy. And later in the conversation, when we get into chakras. I'll do a little exercise to move us closer into that. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting that you said that we're teaching them to be eulogized. I recently saw a feature film, an independent film. I believe it was called The Interrupters, and it had a lot to do with violence, primarily in the Chicago community. And in one scene, I remember that there was a young man that had gotten killed. I believe it was retaliation. And it was so interesting. They were bringing to the attention of the viewer that the kids were glamorizing it. They were taking pictures almost of themselves in the caskets with their friend. I mean, it was almost horrific, to watch them glamorize it and smile. So it's interesting because there was just so much, like you said, there was so much attention and fanfare. So anyway, I'll move on, but I just wanted to note that because it definitely did resonate with me.
Yeah, but I did watch that part of that. I had a small piece about it that I could not watch it all the way. However, I had an experience when I was 10 years old where my first cousin was actually shot in the head, and he was a part of a street gang at the time called the Blackstone Rangers. And at 10 years old, when they had the funeral down at the Metropolitan Funeral Parlor down on, I believe it was 46th and King Drive at the time, but when we walked in, there were 20 men, 10 on each side, standing against the wall. And they all had on these black jackets, and I believe they were red berets. It could be the opposite, but whatever. But at 10, I had to walk through these men. When the family car came in, all of us walked through these men to go to our seats. And here I am sitting in the front row. And then each one of these men walked by my cousin, who was very, very dear to me. He was my protector. And he was 19 at the time when he was killed, but I was 10. And I watched each one of these men kiss him on the lips while he was in that casket. And that put such a permanent imprint in my mind that I believe it was probably in that particular situation that I said children should not die. And I probably really got clear about my mission at that point because it seemed so horrific to have all of these. And when I heard someone talk about it, they said that's the kiss of death. That's the main 21. That's what they do. And, so I didn't have this glorified feeling about street gangs, but I could see how young people were taken to it. And that's when I began to look at the work of young people. So I just wanted to share with you, that some of that experience, somewhat of that experience colored what I do for young people as well.
Right, and you've had a lot of experiences, and I believe that that this would be a great time to talk about, how you arrived on this path. What do you feel were maybe some key elements that mobilize you on what people, I suppose now we call it the key phrase is the path to enlightenment, but the journey, what would you say placed you there?
Right, very good. So, I talked a little bit about my mother getting sick and that being one of the greatest turning points, and then my actual cousin getting killed at 10. So I was already living in this existence that, I am alone. There's something very, very different in this world. I have got to figure out how to maneuver. And that took me into a very strong spiritual connection to God. I literally prayed all the time. I read the Bible all the time. I studied all the time. As a matter of fact, I began learning how the brain operates at the age of 8. And I had in the back of my mind that I needed to understand how my mother lost her mind. I mean, literally, it's like, wait a minute, somebody can lose their mind? Let me help her find it. Because my mother was the sweetest. My mother was the most, oh, my God. I am so grateful for those 5 precious years that she gave me, because she treated me with such love. I mean, the love that I give to my children and my friends literally was put in me from my mother. So I honor those 5 years that she gave me. But I needed to find out how she lost her mind. So when I came into the awareness that I needed to figure that out, my life seemed to take this very uniquely different path from everyone else that was working or that was hanging out with me in my neighborhood. And I was pretty much a street kid. So a lot of parents didn't want their children to play with me because I didn't have any supervision. I didn't have a mother, didn't have a father. My grandmother was working and pretty much busy. So what occurred for my initiation was at the age of 17, I fell through the bleachers at a football game, and I actually busted my leg. I broke my hip, thigh, and knee my senior year in high school. And, boy, that was it, because I laid in that bed for 3 months, willing myself to die. I was so upset with life. I was just done. I wanted to go. I told God, how could you do this to me? I've been this good kid. I'm about to graduate from high school, and I was about to be the only person in my family who had graduated. I mean, I was the last of 5 that my grandmother was raising, and here I was about to graduate, and no one had ever graduated yet. So I was about to graduate, and I fall through the bleachers. So that 3-month stay in the hospital took me into the deepest part of myself that I had never experienced, but I was giving up. And then one day this teacher came in, Mr. Baker, and Mr. Baker was never one of my teachers. I was never in one of his classes, but he taught at my high school. And he brought in some reading materials. I think he brought me about 7 magazines and this one book. And he said to me, I brought you something to read, but, I really think you should read this book, but I know it might be a bit too deep for you. But if you read it, you may be able to get something out of it. And, I felt the dare. I'm like, really, too deep for me? You got to be kidding. Ooh. So as soon as everyone left that particular night, that Friday night, I'll never forget it, I actually scanned the chapters of the book, and it was probably 21 chapters at the time. And I scanned the chapters, and then I only looked at 3 chapters on healing. And I read all 3 of those chapters on healing. And I began to do the actual work that night. And I won't go into all the detail, but do you know that on Monday morning, the doctors were able to put me in a body cast so that I could leave the hospital the next day based on the work that I did from reading that book.
That's powerful.
So that's very powerful. So I gained a huge appreciation for knowledge, huge. And you fast forward a few years, we have educational products around that. The curriculum that we've designed inside the school is around that. So that was my initiation at 17 into the healing powers of the mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's actually one of our listeners mentioned that she's looking forward to hearing more about the heart chakra vibration and increasing the connection and positive energy for her wonderful preteen son. So I think now actually would be a good time to start on some of the topics that you're going to discuss tonight. I know that there's a learning quadrant, chakra awareness, and the MARV techniques. So wherever you would like to start, I'm actually really interested in chakra awareness. Even for myself, it's interesting how even in just general conversation, I find myself often, we've spoken about, maybe something that maybe I would think is a physical, just a plain physical ailment, and it's directly correlated to maybe some sort of blockage or something that you mentioned that may have something to do with the chakra, and I became fascinated by that, and that's actually become an ongoing, as you know, over time, ongoing independent study. So all of those, definitely looking forward to hearing more, but start wherever you like.
Very good. And I'm not going to start there because I think if I start with the learning quadrants, the chakras are going to make more sense later, right? So let's start with the learning quadrants. The learning, so there are 4 ways that we take in information, and I call them MEPS, so we take in information mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So that makes up MEPS. The learning quadrants would be mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So when you look at how we take in information mentally, you will notice that most of our educational system is based on teaching us through mental assessment or through mental dialogue or through reading, through lectures. All of that's mental. So 90% of how we're educated in the school system is mental. And that means that when you have the other 3 quadrants, right, they make up the other 10%. And I would say it's even much different than that. So mentally, we spend a lot of time in our left brain. And the left brain is pretty much for logic and reasoning, and, it has very little to do with the emotions. So when we go into emotions and we look at how we learn through our emotions, people say, well, I don't like how I feel. Well, how you feel is telling you something about you. It's telling you something about the world that you live in, or it's telling you something about your perception. The way that your spirit communicates to you is through your emotions. And it's very interesting because young people, when they get to a certain age and their hormones start changing, and the first thing we say is check your attitude. How have we demonstrated to them how to check their attitude? Most of us have been told to, when we cry or when we express anger, we've been told to shut up and sit down and be quiet. So we haven't had a chance to demonstrate how to use our emotions or how to learn from emotions. I suggest that as parents, when we're working with our children with their emotions, that we teach them how to breathe. The first thing that we could do is to teach them how to breathe. I started teaching my 2-year-old grandson how to breathe into his belly when he would get ready to throw a temper tantrum. So he's 5 years old now, and when I raise my voice just a little bit, he'll say, Mima, breathe into your belly. Like, check yourself. So our emotions are the way that we're learning. We're learning something about ourselves and our environment. And then physically, when we're learning physically, when we're teaching ourselves physically, do you know that every time we eat something, we're communicating something to our body? So every time you eat dead food, and you think about all the dead foods. I mean, come on, Janice. When you think about dead food, what do you think about when you're eating dead food? What are some of the dead foods that people eat?
I know some that I used to eat. I'm originally from Texas, so I had plenty of dead food. Barbecue, meat. Yeah, I mean, you name it. I mean, it just really, for me, it starts there. The first thing I think of is summers in Texas and very few live, I think vegetables were a formality if anything, they were a garnish. So processed foods, maybe, I'm thinking.
Yes, processed foods. And if you're in Chicago and you're walking down the street in the morning, do you know that you see children with flaming hot and blueberry juice?
The 0% juice, the chips with the chili cheese at the bus stop in the morning, and you're wondering how they crash before 10 o'clock, you know?
Exactly. And this is what they're being trained to think is nutrition. But literally, what they're communicating to their body is dead. It's die. It's literally dying. It's literally killing them as they're eating it. And it's telling them, oh, this isn't, we're not living long. We're just dying. Literally saying dying. And the same thing happens when you eat food that is alive. So what is live food? Live food is fruits. Live food is vegetables, right? Enzymes, sprouts, things that are fresh from the ground, as close to the ground as possible. Plants, things that literally give you a rejuvenated sense of being alive. So when you eat that type of food, your vitality increases. Your energy increases. Your youthfulness increases. So that's another way that we're learning, another way that we're teaching our bodies to live by the foods that we eat. Okay, so we mental, emotional, physical. Now when we look at spirit, how do we learn spirit? How do we learn from spirit? You know, how do we teach spirit? How do we share with our spirit? Most of the time, you know, we've been taught that if you want to know about your spirit, you go to church. And when I said that to someone recently, they said, no, you can't learn about your spirit in church. Now, that's very interesting because I would think that is the one place that you could. But the way that you learn about your spirit is from sitting down, closing your eyes, being still, and being quiet. And this is where you make the connection to your inner universe. This is where you have the power to find out who you really are without any influence from the outside. Because if we keep getting all of our communication from the outside about who we are, then we will never become who we are really meant to be. All of us are hooked up on the inside with a complete description and a complete blueprint of who we have come here to be in the mission. So we want to sit down, be still, and meditate. And we want to do that inside of the quietness of a room where no one will disturb us. Does that make sense? And that's what I call MEPS, the learning quadrant.
Wow, that's interesting and definitely something to hold on to. Is there a place where people can get more information about specifically MEPS?
Yes, you know, I would like for people to actually participate in some of my upcoming workshops that we will be starting in January. Yeah, so I'll talk more.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. So let me see. I did see the question about the book, so I did put that title in. Just wondering, did anyone have any question about the learning quadrants? Anyone have anything out there about that? Otherwise, I will go ahead into discussing a little bit about the chakras, okay, and why it's so important for us to understand this amazing system of electricity that we have going on inside of us. So let me see. I think I started meditating about the age of 14 by accident while watching a program on Channel 11 called Lilia's Yoga in You. And when I started meditating, I thought the coolest thing in the world was to be able to go inside and close my eyes and just be there forever. I mean, I could go inside my mind and just, I was in London. I mean, I would just go every place. I was all over the world inside my mind. So I thought that meditation was the coolest thing. And then after I began to do more work and understood more about metaphysics, I later ran across information about the chakras and how we give out and receive energy from the universe and the people around us. So we have 7 chakra systems, major chakra systems, because we actually have more than that. There are 17. There are many more than that. But we want to talk about and just become familiar with the 7 major ones so that we can get in alignment with them and begin to feel this energy flow inside of us. So I just want to go ahead and discuss them briefly, just name them and tell you where they are. And then I really suggest, I'm going to have more workshops on this, but go ahead and do your own research and find out as much as you can about it, because the chakras, when you look at the stars and the planets all out, in the universe, we have an amazing universe, a similar system like that inside of us that we connect with the energy from the sun and the moon and the star. We connect with that energy from our chakras. So it's very important that we know about this and that we teach our children so that they can center themselves. Oh, did you have something to say? Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to. Did someone raise their hand? Okay. No, I mentioned that you always speak of children when you're talking about chakras and metaphysics, and often you've been speaking a lot about how children are closer to these things, or they're a bit more uninhibited. Maybe you could articulate that a bit better than I can, but I hear you speak a lot about children and their closeness to these natural occurrences.
Oh yeah, I am so grateful that at a young age, as a parent, I realized that I gave birth to my mother and my father. So my older children literally came here to teach me and to remind me of my past. Okay, to just remind me, and so I haven't necessarily read this someplace, but I say that because our children were with the Master's last, they actually looked down and they said, oh, my mom, I want her, I'm going to go help her. I got to go right now. Let me jump in. And my son, my oldest son, literally, and I wrote about this in my first book, Patiently Waiting for Nothing. He literally saved my life, because there was a time when I took an overdose of pills, and it was him that went and when his father came in the house, he I think he was like 18 months old. He grabbed his father's hand and brought him into the room where I was, and I was cold. I was out. So a couple of things. Had his father stayed gone longer, I probably would not have been revived. And secondly, he didn't let his father sit down in the living room and talk to his uncle, because his uncle was there with him, but he grabbed his hand and brought him into the room. So he literally saved my life in that instant. So I believe that children, I believe that children come here to help remind us of our past, but they also come here to help teach us. They come here to literally train us and teach us. And I tell you, in my surrendering to being a parent and making choices around being a good parent, my life literally transformed and became the most amazing thing in comparison to people who didn't do that. because I did have some other young single mothers around me who were participating, and I literally saw the difference in the choices, and I made choices around the well-being of the children, and some of them were very hard choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So children, I believe, are masters. I call them young master geniuses because you're one of my young master geniuses. You're older. You're actually the age of my children, and you teach me all the time. And people, the young people who are around me, amaze me at how much knowledge they provide to me on a daily basis. So, young people really do come here with a great deal to teach us.
Great. So I want to remind everyone really quickly to raise your hand, as we say, just dial or press the number 1 on your keypad or whatever device you're using. And actually, Teresa has a question. She's raised her hand, so we'll let her ask her question.
Can you hear me?
Is that her?
Can you hear me?
Is that Teresa?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Teresa. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. I do have a question. I hear Rita saying about meditation, and I was privileged to do it with a girlfriend of mine when my father was very ill, and my 2 girlfriends took me to Lake Geneva, and that particular morning we were just walking through this path, and there was a little lake there with a bench, and my girlfriend's into breathe in, breathe out, and the whole meditation thing. And, I said, I could use that. I was so stressed out. So I sat there, and I listened to her. She said, breathe in light, breathe out darkness, breathe in light. And she kept saying that. And so I started doing that. And I had an experience where I heard something in my midst, and I opened my eyes, I peeked, and there was a big buck, a big deer. And I kind of freaked out, and she saw me, and she was like, just breathe in light, breathe out dark, don't let that bother you. And I kept doing that. And then about a minute later, I heard the buck make a sound like a horse, and he was like that. And I was like, wow. And I felt it in my spirit that my dad passed away at that moment, like that was his last breath. And sure enough, I got back to the hotel. Well, actually, the girls asked each of us, what did you experience? And I couldn't even talk. I said, I get it. I get it. And when I got back to the hotel and we changed into our bathing suits to go to the pool, I did get the call from my sister to get back to the hospital right away.
Wow.
And they didn't pronounce him dead until I actually got there, and my whole family was in the waiting room, and I thought that was it. And I had that look like, is this it? And they were like, no, the doctor's in with him, and she asked us all to leave. So I walked to his room. I kind of peeked in, and the doctor was there. She saw me, and she said, come on in, and I was like, are you sure? She was like, yeah. So I came in, and as she was doing what she was doing, he flatlined. I was there when it went it just flatlined, and it just freaked me out. It took me, I would say a good year to get over that experience. And I come from a big family, but no one really understood what I was saying to them until I spoke to a pastor friend of mine who asked me to look up Psalm 41, I believe, where it talks about the deer by the brook and how he pants for God. And
so, Teresa, have you actually continued to meditate now?
It's been a very emotional roller coaster for me after that.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure because it seems like a lot of people do, and I probably threw a question out there when I got on to register, was there's a lot of people that they don't speak your language. They freak out when you share these things. So,
okay. Well, I'm gonna ask you to go ahead and continue to listen, and make sure that at the end, when I give my contact information, that you take it down, because really you're already very connected to a higher consciousness, and you're right there. I think that you have a little bit of fear, and probably because you're listening to people around you, but you really want to begin to harness that power for yourself, because you're right there, okay? So just continue to listen in, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, yeah, most of us have had experiences that scared us, or that we didn't understand, and we couldn't bring any understanding to. And when we talk to people who don't have the language for it, we tend to, she said it right, we freak out, and we don't have any idea of how to manage our emotions around it. So that's why it's so important for us to really train ourselves inside of breathing, inside of learning how to connect our energy to ourselves. And again, let me go ahead and quickly go through. I was going to list the chakras. Is that all right, Janice, if I go ahead and do that? Janice, did I lose you?
I'm here. Sorry about that. Actually, we do have a caller that was asking if you could really just quickly note the book that you were given at 17 years old.
Yeah, I did list it. So it's there. I put it on the page. So I'll go ahead and say it, but on the page it's listed, and it's called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And here's what I want to say about that. That book was written in 1963, and so the edition that I was reading was the 1963 edition, and it has since changed. So if you get the book, I say go on Amazon and look for an older version, because the newer version does not have all of the wonderful information that was in that 1963 edition. So The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. Okay? Okay, very good. So,
all right,
Janice,
so you can continue on. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just want to go ahead and go through the chakras, and then just I want to talk about their location, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about some of the healing concerns around them. So
Sure.
How we count the chakras is from the bottom up, right? But the number is from the top down, or something like that, But we actually have 7 chakras, and we start with the I'm going to start from the top and then come back up. So the first chakra, let me see. I think I actually want to start from the bottom. Yeah, I'm going to start from the bottom. The first chakra is the root chakra, where we sit down. When we sit down on our bottom, we're sitting on our root chakra. And it's located, there's just a little energy in between. We call it the perineum or whatever, but that's where that energy is lodged. And you can see that there's the color red. There's a color red that's surrounded there. And that root chakra contains what we call our security center, or security, how you feel safe, how you feel connected to the planet, how you feel connected to people around you, how you feel connected to the universe, is based on how you feel connected within yourself at your root chakra, okay? So that's number 1. And then when we move up to the second chakra, it's the sacral chakra, and I'm spelling that S-A-C-R-A-L, sacral chakra. Some people refer to it as the dantian. It's just 2 inches below the navel. And that is your chakra that deals with sexuality as well as creativity. Okay, and the color there is orange, and it's just 2 inches below your navel. And then if you move up to your 3rd chakra, that's your solar plexus, Plexus, SPLXUS. And the solar, think about when else is there a solar, okay? The sun, our solar system. So our solar plexus is our central point, and this is your place of power. And the color there is yellow. And then we move up into the center of our chest, and we have our heart chakra. And it's in the center of your chest, even though your heart itself is over to the left. Your heart chakra is comprised of your chest area, and that color is green. And has a lot to do with your relationships, almost everything to do with your relationships, because it's all about love, right? And in Chicago, we are the heart chakra. So this is where our work is, inside of our chest. And then we move up to that soft area just at our throat, and that's called your throat chakra. This is where you gain the power to speak your truth. And the color there is blue. If you ever experience a sore throat, I just want you to look and see, are you swallowing angry words? So if you're getting a sore throat, it's probably because you need to speak your truth, and you need to speak it in a way that people can hear you, okay? And then your next chakra, your 6th chakra, is your 5th, what did I say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6th chakra is your 3rd eye. Your 3rd eye, most people, I do know some more conscious people that call it your 1st eye, because it's located just in the center of your forehead, and it is your psychic center. It is your radar. It is your radio. It is your frequency that lets you know, danger, danger, danger. Don't do this, don't do that. And that is where your pineal gland is located. And that's one of the most important chakras for us to nurture right now, and especially in our young people. And the challenge for us is that fluoride destroys the pineal gland. And where do we have fluoride? In our tap water and in our toothpaste. And they're putting it in a lot of our food, too. So this is why our youth are becoming so easily controlled. And then our last chakra, 7th chakra, in the color, the pineal, or the 3rd eye, that color is indigo. Okay, and I could do a whole series on indigo children, but that color is indigo. And then our 7th chakra is the crown chakra. It's in the center of our head. We know it very well because when children are born, right, that's the soft spot. That's the energy. That's the connection that they have to the life of the universe, the energy coming into them, and then it begins to close up. So the universe is supporting them with the life force of the universe as they come in. And that chakra, the crown chakra, the color there is violet. Okay? So did you get all those, Janice?
I did. I did. I'm sure I'll have to ask you a few questions afterwards, but I got the general idea.
Very good. So when we're talking about the chakra centers and we're talking about the energy there, we can pretty much, when you look at the most African American women, or actually women of color, tend to have fibroid tumors. A lot of this has to do with us not putting our creativity into the world. We have literally been using our physical body as our expression of life instead of our creativity. And we we have to stop that. We don't need anyone's permission to give our gifts to the world. And we don't have to wait until someone pays us money to give our gifts to the world. We need to give our gifts to the world, and the universe will provide our sustenance. But as long as we sit back and keep waiting for someone to recognize us and applaud us and appreciate us, we will continue to have these tumors inside of us at least until we're 50. And then at 50, something happens and they go down. So we really don't have to do any surgery around that, and that's a whole nother conversation that some of the other healers can talk about when they get on here. But that's one of the main ones. Your sacral chakra, that orange area, is where if you need to get your creative juices flowing, that's where you want to go. Most of us are stuck there because we only use it for sex and pleasure. We have been caught up in the pleasure principle. But if we get that center moving with our heart chakra moving, we will actually experience abundance and wealth that we have never seen.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions on that? I know that was that was a bit much.
Any brief questions?
Actually, they should probably go to the site and type it in, because if we run out of time, if they go on Facebook and go on to the Ignite Your Soul Connection community page, I can actually respond to some of the questions, a little bit, as if we run out of time, I can respond later. Okay, so you said we have a question. Do we want to write the question out? I'm not sure if we have time to put someone on the call. It's up to you. It's up to
I think really quick we could take a quick call from Ray. So Ray did have a question. We'll take it really quickly and then we'll move on.
All right,
Ray?
thank you. I just want her to explain the last thing she said a little bit more in clarity.
On which one?
On the one where she says how we use our bodies for the wrong thing, and if we use it for a certain thing and then not look for the world to recognize us, how we can live a much more fulfilled life.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I was speaking about the second chakra, which is the sacral chakra, and it is our seat of creativity. And I said that most of us have allowed ourselves to be stuck inside of the pleasure principle. So what I mean by pleasure principle is that we spend a lot of time fulfilling ourselves through sexual energy. So we get inside of relationships so that we can have sex as a convenience, but we don't really develop our gifts. So we all have been given at least 10 skills, gifts, and talents that will guarantee that we will not ever need anything. I mean, that is just our gift from the universe. We all have these gifts. But if we get stuck just seeking pleasure and just seeking to feel good inside of that chakra only, then we never come up to the next chakra, which is our power chakra. And then we never make it up to our heart chakra, which is where real love exists. So when you combine real love with the creativity or the sacral chakra, you actually experience a sense of wealth that will come to you because, first of all, you will be sharing your gifts. And you will be really loving people from your own place of love and not needing them to love you. So when we're open like that, when our hearts are open and we're just giving, like the people who are sharing themselves on this conference this week, they're just freely giving of their time and their energy without consideration for, can you pay me before I do that? No one is getting paid for this. We're all sharing ourselves. And then inside of that, we're sharing from a point of things that we've created in our life. We've created stuff, so now we can share that creativity. That already is creating this energy of abundance. And I love Bezos. He says that abundance is really being able to do whatever there is that you want to do at the time that you can do it. Most people think that abundance is how much money they have. And we really want to move away from that, because some people have a whole lot of money, but they don't have friends, they don't have health, they don't have time, and they don't have energy. So I don't care how much money they have, they are not abundant. So I hope that answers your question.
Truth told, definitely.
Yes. Very good. So the last area, so I see that we're right at the 8 o'clock hour, so I do want to talk briefly about the MARV technique, because the MARV technique is our flagship curriculum. So it's a piece that we use inside of each one of our courses, because it really takes all of us inside of the right brain. I spoke earlier about how much we stay outside, we stay in the left brain so much that we forget that where the real excitement is in the right brain, where all the color and all the juice and all the music and all the spirit is in the right brain. So here's the MARV technique stands for meditation, affirmation, relaxation, and visualization. So again, meditation, affirmation, relaxation, and visualization. So every one of us, when a challenge or a problem arises, the first thing that we want to do is we want to go into our left brain and start analyzing it. We want to analyze it. We want to justify it. We want to see what reason, what was the reason. Then we want to put a logical sequence. Then we want to plan it out, and we stay off, and then we start worrying about it. we just worry about it. That does not solve it. What you want to do with your left brain is you want to state what the problem is. The problem is I need to be able to do this. Bam. Then you take this into the MARV technique, which is all right brain. You meditate on, you close your eyes, and you look and see what is it that you need to do. And you sit quietly, and you really look at all of the different things that you need to do around that situation, but not in your left brain, but actually in the vision part, right? And then you affirm that you can get this done. You actually create affirmations from, I am powerful, I am genius, I am capable, I am worthy. You know, you create affirmations from that power of I am, of who you are inside you. And then you relax and you allow the universe to provide the answers that you're looking for. See, you don't have to start doing the work right away, because you want to sit back and let all of the pieces fall in place. And then you visualize what it is you want it to look like when it's complete. So when I started working on this side, because the doctors weren't as concerned about my hip and knee as they were about my femur bone, because the femur bone is the biggest bone in the body. And they're like, well, you know, that femur bone, we need to put a rod in it so you can get out of here. Well, my body was not having rods, so they never had a chance to do the surgery on that, because my lungs kept being unavailable for it, for the anesthesia. So when I had to do the work, when I began to envision, and that was part of the process, visualize the outcome, I used my imagination to see 3 little men knitting my bones back together. So every time the doctor and the nurse would come in the room to wake me up, I would sleep, because they said, you know, the best time to program your mind is when you wake up and right before you go to sleep. So I would close my eyes, and I would see those three little men knit my bones back together, and they come and wake me up. And I close my eyes, and I visualize those three little men knit my bones, and they wake me up, and they thought I was in a coma. I kept going this way. They said, we have to give her full visitation because something's wrong. But sure enough, I started that process on Friday, and by the time Monday came, I woke up and I said, I want to see my doctor. And the doctor said, well, what do you want? I said, I want x-rays because I want to go home because I think it was like Christmas Eve. It was about to be Christmas. It was a couple of days before Christmas, and I was done with hospital food for the holiday, right?
Right.
So the doctor came in and he said, he said, well, you must have come inside. And he showed me the X-ray. He showed me an X-ray from Friday. And on that X-ray from Friday, you could still, there was a severe break. There was a severe break, clearly, a clean break, but my femur bone was not connecting. And then he showed me the X-ray from Monday. This Monday X-ray had all of this, I called it angel hair, wove around that break. But it wasn't angel hair, it was calcium. And the doctor said, you see this? He said, the way the body works is that it takes all of this calcium from this group and it knits your bone back together. So those three little men have been knitting my bone back together. Your imagination doesn't care what you use. It's going to believe whatever you put in there. And this is how you use the Marv technique. We need to program our own minds. We are allowing the television to do that now. We are allowing the television to go inside of this psychic center, our third eye, and tell us how to live.
No, I was just saying, they call it television programming. It's not a metaphor. So, and as going on, as you talk about your processes and methodologies, is there any that you could share right now so they can experience or benefit from some of the insight or some of the things, the self-healing that you spoke of? Of course, there may be more work, but is there something specific or a particular process that you would want to have them research or explore now?
Yes, I would love to do a nice 5-minute, I would just like to do a nice 5-minute cleansing breath and go into touching the colors of the chakra inside our body. So if people, where they are, you can't do this while you're driving, but if you're in a place where you can just close your eyes, it doesn't have to be a dark room, and we're only going to take 5 or 10 minutes on this, so, it won't be too long. But I just want you to really close your eyes so you can begin to touch base with the chakras. And I'm going to start at the top down, just looking at the color. But before we start the coloring, I just want you to practice some belly breathing with me. And I'm sure when Dr. Hoppy speaks on Thursday, he'll go into deeper technology on this. But when you breathe in, and we're breathing in through our nose, when you breathe in, your belly is going to come out. And then when you exhale, again, you're exhaling through your nose, your belly is going to come in. So let's just do that real quick. Breathe in through your nose. Belly's coming out. Very good. Holding it. 2, 3, 4. Very good. And then exhale through your nose. Your belly is collapsing. Pushing it in and hold it. 2, 3. Very good. Breathing in. Belly is coming out. Hold it. Very good. Exhaling through your nose, collapsing the belly, pushing it in a little more just to release the toxins. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in slowly. Hold it. Very good. Relaxing. And then exhaling one more time. Pushing the belly in. Very good. And now just go ahead and continue your regular breathing, but keep your eyes closed And I just want you to see the color of purple. Just see like this violet purple on the top of your head at your crown chakra. You see it sitting there, just moving. Use your imagination for the colors. Just see it there. And as you're breathing, you're seeing the color purple. And now I want you to go ahead and allow yourself to inhale your breath into the crown chakra with the color purple. Inhaling the color purple, very good. And now exhaling the color purple. And now as you inhale, again, go down into the indigo. You're going into your third eye, right in the middle of your forehead. Breathing in the color indigo at your third eye. And then you're exhaling color indigo at your third eye. Very good. And now you're going down, you're breathing in at your throat chakra, the color blue. Breathing in the color blue at your throat chakra. And then you're going to exhale color blue at your throat chakra. Very good. Go to your heart chakra, breathe in color green. Feel that expansion, very good. And exhale the color green, sending all of that love out. Very good. Go down to your solar plexus, breathe in yellow. Yeah, that's your power. Breathing in your power. And exhale, sending your power into the world. Excellent. Go down to your sacral chakra, just 2 inches below your navel. Breathe in the color orange. And exhale, color orange. Very good. And then go down to your root chakra where you sit. Breathe in, color red. Exhale, color red. And now see if you can take one long breath and go through all of them. Breathing in red, orange, yellow, green. Very good. Exhaling. Violet, green. Very good. Yellow, orange, red. Very good. Breathe in. Good. And then just exhaling. One more time. Breathing in. That is you connecting to your source. That is you connecting on the inside to your power. Isn't that wonderful? If you do that when you wake up in the morning, you will know who God is for real. You will know. So I'm going to just invite you guys to really do more research on your own. Okay? Just do more research. Find out about your chakras. You begin to find out what chakras are weak, which ones need your attention now. I can tell you for the most part that the root chakra, your security, has to be within you. You cannot rely on the world. You have to create your relationship with God and the universe and know that that's where your power is. Okay?
Right.
All right.
How
was that, Janice? Did you get a chance to do any of that?
A little bit, but I had to stay focused and keep up. But, yeah, absolutely. It's a common practice for me. I wanted to make sure, I know we don't have as much time left, but there are two very important things that I know you need to cover, and I wanted to ask the questions together if I could. And it sort of switches it a little bit, but all the same. You know, there's a lot of conversation about 2012. I mean, it's, you know, prevalent conversation these days. I mean, you know, here we are. We're in where did this year go, right? You know, we're in the last month of the year, going into 2012. Then the winter solstice prior to that is December 21st through the 24th. Any notes regarding 2012, any conversation or anything you want to discuss regarding that? And then also regarding the winter solstice, do you do anything specifically in observance of this time of the year? Just what made you start doing that, if anything, and if you would just share that with our participants now.
Very good, and I'll go ahead and collapse both of those. I'll put those both together because this is the end of the year, and so in just a couple of weeks we will move into 2012. And, you know, it's so interesting that we, as a collective, as a community, have not really taken advantage of this new energy that has become available on the planet. We're still running around, spending our energy, spending our time, spending our attention as though the universe, the energy has not changed, like things are the same, and they're not. We're about to experience a huge financial collapse. I mean, the money is going to change. It has to, because people are not going to be slaves to the economy anymore. So if the money is going to change, then why are we acting as though we should still go out and give it away and give it up after we've spent this whole year making it? So it's very important. And here's the other thing I want us to look at inside of the solstice conversation. I wonder why someone has created 3 major holidays at the end of this year during the winter when the universe itself, or the planet Earth itself, is asleep. The planet is asleep. It is resting. It is preparing for the spring. So here we are giving up all of our energy from Thanksgiving all the way to New Year's, right? As though there's not something else we should be doing. Really, when we are aligned with the planet, with the universe, we need to be restoring ourselves. We need to be planting seeds, because this is a time when the universe can literally take this energy and help us manifest quickly, much quicker than ever before. So we need to be learning more about our spiritual powers. We need to understand or overstand more about who we are as co-creators with God. So there's a reason why people have trained us to run around like crazy this time of year, so that we are not taking time to nurture ourselves. If we would just be still and spend time putting it down on paper, our intention, what our spirit is telling us, you know, giving us our blueprint, telling us our life purpose, sharing with us who we truly are, if we would take time to do that, we wouldn't spend so much time out in the street shopping and trying to get to every party and every event and showing up and being on the scene, because we would know how important it is to nurture ourselves. So at the winter solstice, which for me, they put it on the calendar different each year, but from December 21st to December 24th, I usually do a cleanse. I usually start a few days before that, and I end a few days after that. And I cleanse 4 times a year, at the winter solstice, the summer solstice, and then at the spring equinox and the autumn equinox. And because I do that, I usually rarely ever get sick. Or if I do, I know that it's an adjustment, it's something that I need to deal with emotionally, and I usually get over it really quick. But I take time at the winter solstice to really connect with my own sense of well-being and look and see, is there any place that I need to make adjustments? And I stay in like 4 days of rest, relaxation, meditation. Sometimes I get together with friends when it's possible, but it's really a time of inner peace. And when I'm planting seeds at that time, by the time the real new year come around, which is at the springtime, most of the things that I have been planting a seed on begin to germinate. So that every year I get to see a harvest because I stay in alignment with the energy of the planet. So I call these the holy days. As soon as the fall starts coming in, I start slowing down. You know, if the leaves are falling off the trees, then I take that as a sign for me to be still. Okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
No, I was just saying absolutely.
Yeah, but I was just saying that I just use that time to go in.
Absolutely. So what I wanted to do really quickly, I just want to note, we're about to wrap up here, but I definitely wanted to make sure that people knew if they wanted to learn more about Master Force Academy, you as a speaker, we know that you're a transformational life coach. Do you have any products or workshops? I know you have a few books written, and also how they can contact you. If you could share that, we'll also add that to the page. That would be great.
Yeah, we're actually in a major transition right now, an exciting transition. So my 2 websites are down because we're bringing up one strictly for the Master Force Leadership Academy. So right now, people can actually contact me through my personal email, which is mushemsut@gmail.com, and that's mushemsut@gmail.com. And then I also have a Google voicemail. So people can actually either send me a text or they can leave me a voice message at 773-969-6211. Again, my Google Voice message you can leave me at 773-969-6211. And, we actually have right now we're completing our fall session of the Life Coach Certification Program. And I just want to encourage everyone that we will start this program up again in March, and we will accept applications beginning in January. This course is a 16-week course for certification. It's going to cost $5,500, but if people actually register by January 30th, we're going to take $1,500 off. So, if they're interested, they can contact me either by phone or email, and we'll make sure we get them through the registration process in January. And that's only for people who are on this call. So, they will have to have either registered for this this conference to get that break. And the people who are in the certification program right now are having an amazing time. And we'll be finishing up in January, but we'll start the next course in March. So.
Absolutely. Well, I want to take this time to just say, personally, just thank you, for, I know for myself and so many others, even including people on the call, the information and the guidance and just the wealth of knowledge and energy that you invest in your community, and not just your community locally, but, nationally, internationally, digitally. You are definitely one of the people that, many people look to, especially in Chicago. they're just keeping great energy and great information flowing. So thank you for what it is that you do, and look forward to continuing our conversations. And I encourage the listeners that are online tonight, if you have any additional questions for Shemsu, please post them on the Ignite Your Soul Connection Facebook page. And if you still do need the information, if you weren't able to catch it in the call, just go ahead and put in your own request on the page, and we'll make sure that we respond back to you. Again, thank you so much for joining us on Ignite Your Soul Connection. Please continue to engage. Again, post your comments. We look forward to tomorrow night. Our guest tomorrow night will be Justin Burns, talking about affirmations. Absolutely, right?
Justin.
Yeah. Justin, I mean, he went from, sleeping in his car to, what was it, a six-figure income?
Yes.
At 20? I mean, I can't wait to hear his story myself. I mean, we know that everyone has a story, but the journey is what really is just something that you can take home and apply.
Yeah.
So
go
ahead.
I just want to say real quick about Justin is that he's a young man that a couple of years ago hit me on Facebook and say, I love what you do. Is there something that you need? What can I help you with? And then he went on to help me launch the website for the online school. So that permanently, that's my buddy.
Absolutely. Onward and upward, as I say. Registration is open for tomorrow. We still have several weeks ahead, a great schedule, amazing people. Please share, post, register, Facebook, Twitter, all of those things. And, again, Ignite Your Soul Connection is being brought to us by Master Force International Leadership Academy, whose commitment is to see our youth educated in a way that they experience being self-actualized at a younger age. We are ascending. Good night.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Tanya. Good night.